Good morning. Is it okay with the mic? Yeah. So after everything you heard about the serious things you can do with Ada, now something totally unserious. HAC. What's HAC? You have the choice: HAC Ada Compiler, Hello World Ada Compiler, Hackers Ada Compiler. So you get it. It's not a real Ada compiler, at least at the time being. You don't know in 10 years or whatever. So it's experimental. It's very likely to be forever incomplete, and very incomplete. So what's the goal? The goal is to have an Ada system for beginners or for people who are more used to script languages. You see, you have your bit of code, you punch a key, you get a result, something like that. But it also can be useful for real Ada developers. If you start a little piece of code, a little algorithm, you want to have something simple to play with, and then you can port it to GNAT or whatever when it becomes more complex. Fortunately, HAC already existed in another form, so it was already done, but it was a dead project. But the idea was to leverage this work, and actually it's a renovation work. So like Pimp My Ride for the old cars. So you had something which was written in Pascal. It ran only on old system that nobody knows anymore. And the main problem was it was written in Pascal. So it means it was written in dialects, actually two dialects. You have two versions of this small Ada, which is the ancestor of HAC. Two versions which are incompatible, and so you need to do something like that. So the idea was to port this project to a language which is very portable, which is time resistant, because it's a long-term project. And the ideal choice, of course, is Ada. And the consequence of it, you have a full Ada in Ada compiler, down to the code generation. A bit of history behind. So you see, it's a very old project, or you have a long history, but it happens more and more. So it began with a special Pascal compiler, a Pascal in Pascal, written by the inventor of Pascal himself. And then in '86, there was something called CoPascal with the introduction of coroutines. And someone had the idea of porting this CoPascal to the Ada syntax and to the Ada tasking for concurrency. And then what happened? DOS and the old Mac OS disappeared, and the project as well was more or less dead. But you could find it on internet, and I also got some copies through email, so it was a kind of archaeological work, basically. So 20 years ago already, I tried to translate small Ada, the codes into Ada, and the main roadblock was there are plenty of with statements in Pascal which makes abstraction of a variable of type record type, and the translator needs to know what to do with that. So I had to improve the P to Ada translator. Actually, it's kind of almost a Pascal compiler hiding, and it understands these statements. And a few years later, after some manual work, finally, at least hello world, but also more complex things like recursion and nesting and so on are working. I will demonstrate later. So now you have the long history behind. Now we have an even longer future before. So you have two steps, more or less parallel, but the most urgent thing is to get rid of the Pascalism, some rules that are absolutely not Ada, not Ada at all. Typically, you have in Pascal and in, I think, almost every language except Ada, silent numerical type conversions. Like you have an integer and suddenly it's converted magically into a float, and you have a float type magically converted into another float type, and you have roundings, and so it's a nice feature of many languages except Ada. It's nice, but it's actually a bad idea. It's a cause of a good portion of bugs in every software you made. That's only an example, but you have some Pascal things remaining, so they need to be removed. And the third step is to increase this small subset, because HAC currently, as you see here, features only the, let's say, the Pascal subset. But it's already not too bad. You can already do cool things with that. So you can define your own types. You have nesting and recursion, but you don't have yet probably the most useful feature of Ada, which is the modularity, the packages, and also you don't have generics, and the list is down to here because almost everything is missing. So it's really work in progress. Some metrics about HAC. The whole compiler and the virtual machine interpreter, it needs 2 seconds, depending on the machine, to compile with GNAT. GNAT is the free Ada compiler you heard about just before. The build time of, let's say you have a piece of code, you play with HAC, it's less than 1/100th of a second. So it really compiles, and typically a beginner or a script language user who just doesn't know what a compiler is, whatever, just this person wants to just run the thing, it runs without even, it doesn't notice there is a compilation behind. It's completely portable, so it's really, you can compile it on Linux, whatever system that's leveraging the portability of Ada. So no conditional, whatever, no special code. The source, Ada source input to HAC can be a file, but it can be actually any stream. So you could have a zip archive, for instance, with a library, and compile all that, or editor data, or web stream. You could have you could put HAC on a web server. Currently, the target, there is only one target, it's a virtual machine, but You can do everything with HAC. I mean, it's open source, it's free. You can implement your own targets, ideally through an abstraction. So where do you find HAC? It's on SourceForge, on GitHub. You can Google it and you find it easily. And there's, I can mention two open source projects. One is Leia, is an editor with an ADA focus, which embeds this compiler, this HAC compiler as well. But you could also embed into your editor, whatever, it's all open. And I mentioned Pascal to ADA, if you, so this translator, which was the basis of translating small ADA into HAC. Now, if I have just some minutes, I show you a bit how it works. So let's see, I'm just completely beginning with a blank page. Okay, I have a few notions of the syntax, but let's try. Okay, something like that, and okay, so let's try. Oh! I forgot. Okay, instead of text IO, which is familiar, I have a special package. So that's something that also there is a real HAC pack for a real ADA compiler like GNAT and so on. So you can run the same program with HAC and a serious ADA compiler. Okay, but I get my hello. Oh. It's too trivial, I put a loop. I forget the end loop and oh, missing closing loop. Okay, oof. And perhaps I just display something with the number. So here you go, you have I square and so on and so on. Here a real use I had to, given year, month and day, I had to give have an algorithm that gives the number of days since date, but since 1901. It's for dates in spreadsheets. They begin around this date. So it's a small snippet I've developed with HAC, and so you have the result. So it is typically something you can already do with HAC. Here you have a diabolical recursive function by a mathematician called Ackermann, and yeah, so you have it's very deeply recursive, and you have the same with GNAT. So the same piece of code, I run it. It's a bit slower, of course, with so it needs to be built, and yeah, it's you see the advantage of having something perhaps faster like HAC for small piece of code. So you don't. Perhaps a beginner would be afraid by all this compile, bind, and link, and whatever, and so you have also the same results. Yeah. So, questions? Yeah.
try to create web services with the other web servers using the compiler?
So web services, no, I didn't try so far. But you can plug any stream to that, so it's feasible, but yeah, I didn't try.
In order to, the idea would be to use it as a web services approach.
Yeah,
like microservices.
Yeah, that's good. It could be a good idea, but perhaps at the moment the quality is really bad with HAC. It's still a bit buggy or not real ADAs. So I would first address that, the quality issues, and then put as a web service, because it would be a bad promotion for ADA.
How did you handle the runtime? So I assume you're not just using the default runtime that comes with GNAT?
So for runtime errors, presently there is absolutely nothing, I think, no exceptions and so on. So either, perhaps it could be good for a target where you don't want exceptions, for instance, perhaps, or very small embedded UC complex thing, or we would need to add exceptions to HAC. Yeah. So currently, yeah, it's a bit disappointing. There is no exception, or disappointing or not, depending on. Yeah.
How about trying to can you make you said something about LLVM that you could make it into prompted for that. Could that be used to prove that compiler works properly for a certain piece of code by comparing the output to GNAT, or they're completely different?
No, the idea, I mean, now it's the common denominator is very small, but the idea is to increase this common part, to increase the subset. So it would be, even if it is a very small subset, it would be real ADA, it would be completely compatible. It's not the idea of making a branch of ADA or whatever. It's better to have something that you can use in a different system, in object ADA, GNAT, whatever.
I was thinking more of using it as a way of proving that the HAC compiler works properly for a piece of code.
Ah, yeah. Of course, I do that already to check. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's also useful for that, for debugging HAC basically.
When it compiles, it uses all the cores of the processor, or just one core?
Just one core is used for compilation. Yeah. So yeah, it's very quick.
What are you using for parsing the sources? Are you using any of the new data logging and stuff like that?
Currently, it's using only it's an ad hoc parser. So it originates from this Pascal parser. It's recursive and so on. So it's an own parser basically. It's a big piece of code. Other questions? Anyone?
We had the discussion with the microservices or web service provider.
Yeah.
I think it might be reasonable to provide this also as a package, so that it has the potential to be used for dynamic compilation in some environments.
Yeah,
So
why not?
And that controls all the parsing and whatever, and then the compiler proper to be just a package that you use and that you can incorporate whenever you need ADA compilations in your application.
Yeah, it's a possibility. I think it's really open. You can. Other questions? Then yeah.